Welcome back to another episode of Rob and Avis Ramble. It's been about 3 weeks since we did this.
Oh, wow.
We've been out of town. We weren't actually supposed to be home. I thought it was going to be another week till we got back to this. And we had some stuff didn't quite go like we thought it was going to play out. And so we ended up home about a week early, roughly. So, but hey, I'm not complaining. It's
No.
good to be home. Good to kind of
sleep in my own bed.
sleep into bed, get some, just kind of back to a rest and kind of get some stuff fixed up. So I'm not complaining.
I'm still working on the rest portion. I'm
Yeah.
a little sleepy tonight. I'm going to pull through, though.
You're going to pull through?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it.
Okay.
I think half the fun of this little project or podcast or whatever it is we're calling this is bringing these topics to you. They have no idea I'm going to bring you.
Yes.
And this was not, as I was kind of thinking about what we were going to talk about next. This is not what I thought we were going to talk about.
Oh, interesting.
But I had a little discussion and interaction and saw some stuff going on X today.
Discussion.
Yeah, discussion.
Okay.
That I just thought it would make a fun topic for us to kick around. So
Yeah, we'll see about that.
we're gonna kick it around.
Your idea of fun is different than mine sometimes.
Well, let me give you a little bit of background.
Okay.
Okay. So there is a podcast out there called the Whatever Podcast.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it too. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
completely live under a rock. It's a little not really too relevant in our lives. I think it's mostly like focused on dating. I think it's kind of red pill centric-ish kind of stuff. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my impression of it. And the host of that, basically he'll have women on, and I think he has I think they're mostly younger women. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he has women of all ages. I'm not really sure. But I guess there was a recent-ish episode where he somehow sex was being talked about. I mean, I think that's talked about a lot on that show.
I was going to say, I think that's a popular topic for that one.
Yeah. And specifically, I guess the topic of oral sex.
Okay.
And, the host made a statement basically that he hasn't gone down on a woman since the Bush administration. And, one of the girls asked him why, and he's like, I just don't like it. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Hey,
Yeah.
sure, fair enough. Yeah,
Right.
Whatever. I mean, I think there's certain sexual things that people...
My cheeks are hurting from trying not to smile.
Yeah, it's just this is going to be a funny topic to talk about.
I think so.
Yeah, this is my fun because you had no idea we were going to talk about this topic. Yeah.
Can't. Okay. Keep going.
All right, we're going to make your eyes water.
Yeah.
Nice. So anyway, so this is kind of the background. I'm setting the background.
Okay.
So there's another account on X. It's kind of a small account, like our account is right now. And the name of the account is the High Status Boss.
Okay.
Okay.
That's funny too. I think I'm tired. Everything's funny. Okay.
So I think this guy. I've been following that account for some period of time. I don't know. I think I ended up in a space he was in or something, and just started following him from that. And I believe he lives in the UK, and we've had a little back and forth here and there. We had some back and forth on guns. I mean, I don't agree with his stance on guns at all. But apart from that, he shared this clip from the Whatever podcast, and I sound like he kind of was getting into. I don't know if I want to call it an argument or discussion, with somebody, over like this concept of going down on a woman, right? And so I shared a thought I had, and he came back, and I want to read you what he said. So let me go find I bookmarked it here, and I had it pulled up, and of course X refreshed it on me. So kind of after our back and forth, he came back and he said, because I was kind of like questioning, like what is the problem here? I think before I read this,
You were questioning I start at the top. So you said what?
a lot of stuff, way too long for me to read.
Okay.
Okay. But
You agree that it's okay that the man hasn't done that?
I think for the whatever podcast, if the guy is like, hey, I'm just not into it.
Right.
Okay, whatever.
So you're defending
Literally.
that position. Is that the gist of the top of it? No.
No.
Okay.
No. So, because the high status boss was taking it a step further.
Okay.
Okay. And this, again, I don't know if this, I want to call this red pill kind of ideology, misguided,
Okay.
maybe. I've said before that I often hear things that are, what I would say is the skin of the truth stuffed with a lie.
Right.
And I felt like this was a really good example of that.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I understand now.
So here's what he says. He says, going down on a woman brings pleasure only to her. That's why it's different. If you're having, and when he's talking about, it's different than just having sex with her,
Okay.
right? So this is like something different. He says, if you're having sex, it feels good for both of you. Not sure why so many men have an issue with this. I used to go down on women. I stopped doing it because it's submissive.
Oh.
Women want dominance.
Interesting.
So, I replied to him, and he didn't, like, I had some more kind of to say after that, because I had some thoughts after him saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of, so skin of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. It's not a man's role to be submissive in the relationship.
Correct.
Right. Lie that we're getting into specific sexual acts that are part of, like, that submissive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there are, right? I would have a lot of trouble with that, seeing that as one. And then, if you're going to go there, I've got a whole lot of other questions, because his premise was that because it's not bringing him pleasure, at the same time it's bringing her pleasure, that's submissive behavior. Okay.
Yeah.
So where, the kind of like question one that I was coming with is, I think for women, and if you're going to understand women, sex does not start with any kind of physical touch, right? It is like a mental, like you are mentally having sex with her, leading up to having sex with her throughout the day, right? And the way that you might touch her, and the way that you, like in our relationship, like, I might, swat you on the ass or something, right? Like that happens.
Well, it's also different. You don't perceive it, but there's you act differently when you want to engage in sex that evening.
With you.
Yes. The way that you smack my butt is different. And I know you say that I'm crazy, but
you said that before.
Yes.
But the point that I'm making is that there are things that are happening that I am doing as the man to kind of signal to you that, like, hey, this is going to get physical at some point later.
Yeah.
Right. So my question is that is not necessarily bringing me physical pleasure, right? I'm doing it because it's part of getting you in the mood, right? Or getting you worked up to what hopefully is good sex, right? So,
but is there not enjoyment in having your partner be pleasured? I mean, yes, physically maybe it's not pleasurable for you, but that doesn't mean it's devoid of pleasure.
Yeah, I do think it's pleasurable. Yeah, and that's where I was kind of trying to go with it, is it's me smacking you on your ass is bringing you certain sexual pleasure in a way because it's getting you into the mood. It's not really doing much for me in that moment. So is the act of having sex with you in your mind, in this guy's opinion, submissive? Right? Like, what is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be like, I'm not talking to you throughout the day. I'm not having sex with you in your mind, right? It's just like, hey, here's the moment. Take off your clothes and bend over, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the lie part of it.
Yeah, especially for a woman. I mean, like you said, we connect on a more mental level. So, like, yeah, that's sex, but it's not intimacy.
Yeah. And I believe this guy's single. I don't know. I don't know what kind of relationships he's had. I don't know. I mean, he would paint himself that he's this kind of high status Don Juan something. I mean, maybe that's true. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I kind of seriously doubt that he's been in that intimate of a relationship if he has this warped view that, you know, that he has to be so it's very like, it's almost like lacking confidence in a way, right? And I know he would probably say the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Because that's his whole thing, is it like high status and high confidence in that. But saying something like that doesn't feel that way to me. It doesn't seem that way to me.
Yeah.
Right. So, I would say there are few pleasures, if any, that I can think of in life that are better than having, you know, a very enthusiastic, worked up woman, right, that you're enjoying sexual encounter with, right, on a very intimate level. So I don't think it matters that we're getting into specific sex acts, and that's not really what I'm going for, like whether you're going down on a woman or not going down on a woman, but it's the getting her worked up to the point that you want her worked up to where it is most pleasurable.
Yeah.
Right. And whatever is involved in that. And so putting it in this box and saying, well, that particular behavior that you're doing is submissive male behavior, I think is complete BS, because it's you are taking command of the situation, right? And you are getting your woman into a kind of state that is ultimately the most pleasurable for you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't. So
you're doing it for yourself. That's what you're saying.
I think you're ultimately doing it for yourself. Yeah. Sure. Because sex is pleasurable, right? Sex is pleasurable for men.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I reject this idea that you're like, well, you can't do anything that's not simultaneously bringing you pleasure, because it is kind of bringing you pleasure, because what you were working towards is going to be pleasurable.
Yeah. And parts of sex are, you know, it's sort of like the balancing scale, right? Like some things are more pleasurable for one party than the other on both sides of it, if that makes sense, right? I mean, that's just how it is. Nothing is equally as pleasurable all the time.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I know where you're going with that, but it's.
Do I really have to say it? I mean, if a woman goes down on a man, I'm sensing a similar comparison, right? Like it's not the most pleasurable for her, but it's physically, but it's pleasurable because she's pleasuring the man,
right.
and
she finds pleasuring the man pleasurable. Yes.
Right.
Right.
So I think they're kind of like. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think this guy would be like, oh, yeah, it's fine for the girl to go down on the guy all day.
Right.
Which, I agree. Big fan. But, like...
Stop. My cheeks aren't going to survive. I'm trying so hard.
But, you know, but to take it to this weird place of, like, just because you're so wrapped up in this ideology of, like, I have to assert this kind of crazy dominance to the point to where I'm getting very specific about things like this. Like that is not in a healthy relationship. The goal is to, you're not just in it for yourself.
Yeah. Oh,
right. And you get pleasure from, your spouse or your, ideally spouse, because as we've talked before, like ideally, I know that's not the reality of the world.
Yeah.
Married couples are the ones having sex. Okay.
Right.
But your partner that you're with, you're getting pleasure. I mean,
I would hope.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like, as a man, a very reactive woman under them?
Also,
right?
I mean, it doesn't have to be passive. You can get a little dominant in all sexual acts.
Sure.
I mean, like, you're not just being a passive person.
Yeah.
You can assert dominance while doing that. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why it's like I just say it's the skin of the truth stuffed with a lie. And that's what's so aggravating about so much of this stuff that I hear. And it's like I think about these impressionable young men, and maybe this gentleman is one of these young men that he's just got, this weird impression was turned into this weird rule now.
Yeah.
That's actually taking away from, the realities of a really good relationship. Right. Because I just, in that, again, I mean, I'm trying to imagine if there's these do and don't, like when do you start having sex with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever it is that you're doing? Like, I hear this and it's like, well, that's submissive. A man should not be pleasuring his wife unless he's also being pleasured. Well, if you're not finding pleasure in pleasuring your wife, there's a pretty serious problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's probably not going to end in a good place.
Yeah.
And he didn't say it to me. I saw another conversation that he was having that he basically was alluding to that, like, if you do those things, so if you are going down on your wife or partner or, whatever the context is we're talking about, that, that relationship is headed for disaster, and soon enough, like, she won't be around.
I mean, I can think of no sexual situation in which you weren't in charge.
Yeah. No matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun of it, right?
That's part of the fun of it. Yeah.
For me.
I think that's kind of like the lie part is like, you can be dominant, and yes, like, agreed, women like dominance in bed, right? I mean, as a general rule.
Yeah.
And whatever specific act we're talking about can still be done with dominance, and you are taking control and getting her into the state that you want her in, which is ultimately going to bring you the most pleasure, because, having sex with a dead fish under you is not very exciting.
No.
Right?
If that's the reaction when you're going down, you might be doing it wrong. Just saying.
Yeah. Right. But
I mean, there could be other issues, and that's why he thinks it's a no-go situation.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I just like the most sexual fulfillment is having the most reactive partner.
Sure. But in both, obviously, right? Like, for everybody involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you want your partner to be excited about having sex with you.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're like, you're not having, again, I'm talking about it from the man's point of view, but if you're not having sex with your wife's mind throughout the day, leading up to that, and then actually when you get into the act, there's this thing out there that we call foreplay. You may have not heard of it before. Maybe it's just like an older people thing. But
not.
there is a reason for that, right? Because the more kind of before you get into the actual act of, we're talking about penetration
Oh, my
right?
cheeks. I can't take it.
Hard topic to talk about without
take
getting
it.
too graphic, right? But like
Yeah.
being going into that with your wife in a particular state
Yeah.
is a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Or just immediate dominance. Here now, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's enough foreplay.
Sometimes.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that is definitely not submissive
Yeah.
on a man's part.
Well, I think that guy would agree with that. I mean, I think that
could be a downtown move as well. Here,
well,
take off your clothes.
I,
This is happening.
I think that's where he was going, is that women want dominance, and so he's like zero foreplay. Like
yes,
we're just gonna go at it.
You can go down in that situation
Sure, you could.
in a dominant
Yes,
with dominance
around a specific sex act.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But it's not like it. And part of a healthy relationship is you're gonna have a good mix, right?
Well, yeah.
You're not going to be like, all of your sex is not going to be like
No, first we do this, then we do this. Then
well,
we do that.
or I'm just saying that you're sitting on the sofa and the next thing you know, you're like, get up, bitch, and take off your clothes.
Yeah.
Like, and you're just going at it. Like, yeah, sometimes that's fun, right? But if that is 100% of your sex,
yeah, no.
that's not going to be good, right? And so
No,
there's
yeah.
kind of like a balance. Then you have the evenings where it's more, or the days I'm talking about where it's more drawn out. You're kind of having sex with her mind. You're trying to, and I'll tell you from I think from my point of view, those are the best kind of instances of sex, right? Where it's kind of like you're working up to it sometimes over days, or a day. And, so that by the time you actually get there, it's
My cheeks. I can't take it.
yeah.
They keep popping up.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm listening.
Yeah. Like, who the heck thought we would be out here on the internet talking about this? At some
I
point?
did not expect this today.
I didn't see this a decade ago. I didn't see this 2 days ago. I don't know, but
I didn't see it 20 minutes ago.
yeah.
Anyways.
So
I would say from a woman's standpoint, if you're ever feeling submissive as a man during sex, you're either a submissive and that's what you're into, or you should reframe how you're thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, there are that slice of society that's their thing, but we're talking about this part that are not.
I would argue that's not healthy in your relationship. That is probably going to cause problems. Like, if you, as the man, you should be dominant in your relationship.
Yeah.
But it's not a, like, don't get caught up on these lies of like, hey, you can't do this specific thing.
No.
Because that is somehow submissive.
I think it can all be done in a dominant fashion from the man's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying not to get too explicit.
Yeah, please.
About what that might look like. But yeah, I mean, I think all of these things can be done in a dominant way. This still satisfies the woman's need to feel dominated.
We'll just say, words, restraint, demands, things like that. Keep the man in control.
Yeah.
And the woman still being pleasured. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. My cheeks. Oof.
Yeah. So, high status boss. Yeah, man. I mean, I would just encourage you to go and kind of just reevaluate your thinking on that, because I don't know what's driven you to that point of kind of coming to that conclusion, but I think it just would be good to kind of give that some deep thought. And what is the end goal, man? I mean, the end goal is to have a healthy, enjoyable,
mutually enjoyable.
Well, I was going to say mutually enjoyable is going to make it more enjoyable for the individual.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, healthy, active, uninhibited sex life. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I think that is really the kind of ultimate place to be.
Right. If you want your wife to be the slutty version of herself behind closed doors, like we discussed before.
We have discussed that before. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, take charge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your wife, and we had said this before, is, there should be nothing better out there for you than what your wife is willing to bring you in a sexual manner, and I'd say vice versa. Right? The man also shouldn't be, holding back.
Yeah.
Right. And I, I mean, that's gonna lead to the most healthy. Be in your role that you're in. Right. We are not saying that there are not dominant and submissive roles in relationships. There are. Right. You can't really have a good functioning relationship in the long run without there being roles.
Right.
So that we're not saying that that's a problem.
No.
What I am saying is you don't get tied up in this kind of weird, like,
yeah.
I don't even know what to call it. It's just like, it's this weird.
Yeah.
Like,
I think calling the act submissive is just, the act itself is not submissive. Maybe the doing the act submissively.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree that I think you could have the same act and it could be done in a submissive manner, right? Which may not be conducive to a good sexual experience, right? And I would say, absolutely, for either. And I would say, and absolutely, stay in your role. I think these red pill guys say frame, and I don't know if I'm using that word correctly, but stay for how they use it. I don't know, but stay in your frame, right? I mean, you are the leader, you are in charge. Yeah. But as we keep saying, without trying to get too graphic, I mean, the same sex act can it doesn't how it is executed. Right?
Yeah, that's a good word.
Determines kind of the nature of the role and the intent of the behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Flip the switch. It can definitely be a dominant act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's just it kind of it's painful to kind of see these young men, and again, I don't know how old this guy is. I'm just assuming, okay. But just these men who are kind of getting caught up in this warped way of thinking, and you're gonna have to, if you're gonna get into the kind of relationship that I think most men would like, in this kind of very intimate, healthy relationship, a lot of, you're going to have to undo some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to cause you some pain, right? So kind of like trying to sort through that.
Yeah.
I think is just.
I keep thinking of this song, and it could be out of context. I'm not a music person, but just, your body is a wonderland. Like, I feel like that should be true for your spouse, right? You should be able to explore and enjoy the whole body. It's a wonderland.
Yeah.
All this for you.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think, again, I don't want to, I can't think of anything better to say about the red pill. If this is red pill, I don't know. Like maybe this is some weird, like maybe like I don't know who the red pill guru is out there, like the top level red pill master. Yeah. Like I don't know if they would agree with what this guy is saying.
It would be really fun to bring a red pill on so we could just really dig in and understand
it. Yeah. But it's just like I just over and over and over again when I see this stuff that I'm attributing to red pill, whether that's fair or not, I don't know. And I just can't think of anything other than the skin of the
Yeah.
truth stuffed with a lie. So I'd encourage you, like any time that you see this stuff, ask yourself, like, is that true? Like really, like honestly ask yourself, is that true? And if that's true, is the prescription it's being given also true?
Yeah.
Because they don't have to be. And I think this is a good case of where it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like if there's sex is an important part of a relationship, an intimate relationship.
Hugely important. And I think if you're specifically talking about the man, I mean, we've talked about this before, kind of in the hierarchy of things that matter.
Yeah.
Sex is going to be there at the close to the top, if not the very top in the man. And I know the women, it's going to be a little bit different, but it's still fairly important.
Yeah, yeah. And physically speaking or scientifically speaking, the more a woman has sex, the more they want to have sex. So it's kind of from the standpoint of a woman, you should never go that long. Like you should keep that drive going. And for the men, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, I've heard it described for a man as more like it's like a rubber band, right? It's like the rubber band's like stretching, and it gets to a taut, tight point.
Yeah.
It's like you got to relieve the pressure.
Yeah.
And then once the pressure relieves, it kind of rubber band comes back.
Right.
And then it starts that process over again, right?
Right.
And I think depending on, age, other factors, health, amount of sleep you're getting, stress, whatever, like that rubber band, how quickly it stretches again.
Yeah.
It varies.
Right. But for a woman, it's more like, I'd like to have sex. If I have sex, great. Oh, that was really good. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Or you go, I'd like to have sex. And then it doesn't happen. You're like, okay. I mean, it's still surviving. I'd like to have sex. No. Okay. Still surviving, And then so like the urge just like slowly wanes. So it's a little different. So like the woman just like doing it more often keeps the motor running, I guess.
Hey, I'm doing the best I can. Over
Yeah,
here.
I know. No complaints. But I'm just saying, like, from a relationship standpoint, if you have a man who's not meeting that drive, once a woman goes a certain amount of time, like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, right? Like a woman can be perfectly happy not having sex if the urge wasn't met on a regular basis early enough.
Yeah, and I think all. Yeah, and I mean there's gonna be, and I think that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when I was saying like working your spouse up, into that point, right? So like once you're worked up, and like you're like sex, right?
Right. Yeah.
But like. If it's and like we've talked about this before, like everything's going to ebb and flow a little bit, right? That's just a natural part of a relationship.
Yeah.
So
hormones, stress,
sleep, all those things. And so if you're at one of those, let's just call it a low, right? Like maybe due to life circumstances, life factors, like kind of taking this, like I was saying earlier, like you're down here and you're like, hey, bitch, take off your clothes and, let's have sex.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I mean, yeah, you're probably going to do it. And it's going to be like, okay, yeah, I mean, whatever. My rubber band's back now. Like, but it wasn't like good sex, right?
Right, but never have I ever regretted having sex.
Understand, yeah. I understand, and that's not where I'm going. But what I'm saying is that, like, if you want, you can certainly do that. But if that is like your go-to for the relationship, I don't see it working in the long run.
Yeah,
really,
that's
right?
certainly not bringing the woman
back
up to a high.
I mean, and like I said, I kind of go back to this dead fish analogy,
Yeah.
So like, if you're like, like take your clothes off and bend over, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Versus like having a woman who you've like, rather than her being down here, you have worked her to kind of where she's up here. And now it's not like she's just like obeying a command
Right.
to bend over and, let you have your way with her. It's like she is like
Excited and into it.
Excited and like begging for it and
Right.
like, all that. And that is a much more enjoyable, I mean, men, right? I mean, we have egos, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows that out there. Men have egos. Like maybe this is the first time you're hearing this.
Yeah.
And a lot of men live and die by their ego, right?
Right.
And I think, people will say that that's not good. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think ego drives a lot of men.
I think a healthy ego is
and
a good
I think
thing.
a healthy ego is good.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. So, in the terms of even for yourself, I mean, even if you're like, hey, Rob, everything you're saying is nuts, right? Like, no, I'm just going to tell her to bend over and take it.
Yeah.
And I'm done, right? But like, let me just ask you, would you find it more pleasurable rather than her just obeying your command to be like, she's so worked up that like, she's like begging you for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Stop.
the cheeks are coming out again.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be more, and it's going to be good for your ego, and it's going to, these are the things that keep it healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you want? Yeah, fine, whatever. Or do you want, yes, let's go?
Yeah. And I know, I mean, there's just so much like out in that young men are subjected to, married or not. And we've got, you've got all these like OnlyFans, right? And porn and like all these things that men are going to, and I believe the term that a lot of people are using that is they're calling them simps, right? Because they're going out and they're getting their ego stroked by these women that they're paying to stroke their ego.
Oh.
Right? So obviously it's important to stroke a man's ego.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like, why don't you do the thing that's going to be protective of your marriage and put your wife into the position of being the one that's stroking your ego.
Right.
And you're gonna do that through kind of sexually working her. I don't know what other term to use.
We've discussed in the past too about sex being kind of a reflection of your relationship. I mean, if your relationship is in the dumps, like sex probably isn't going to be at that high point. So if you're having some troubles, maybe it's time to have some hard conversations about what's happening in general life and clean that up, and that will translate into the bedroom a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was trying to go is if your wife is not as good, I wouldn't even say as good, is not better for your ego than the OnlyFans model you're paying or the porn you're watching or like whatever you're doing, like it's time to go have a hard conversation and say like, hey, like you can do a better job of stroking my ego, right?
Sure.
And maybe I can do a better job of getting you to that place to where you want to stroke my ego.
Sure. I think sometimes like we've had this issue come up before where you're like, hey, I could use some more from you. And I'm like, well, I don't quite see the ways that I can do that. And so you do have to kind of spell it out.
Yeah.
Because men and women see things differently and we move through our days differently. Yeah. And sometimes you just get drowned by the mundane and you just have a hard time.
Yeah. And like we said, it ebbs and flows. And like, I think if anybody says like my relationship is never going to be down here, BS.
Yeah.
You haven't been in a relationship long enough.
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen. Right. And but you have to be willing to go have the hard conversation. And like Avis was saying, like, I mean, she's not always going to understand. And sometimes even the man themselves or the woman, because we view things differently, struggles to verbalize what it is. It's like, I feel something that I need from you and I don't know how to verbalize what that is. And you're going to have to kind of talk through it and figure that out.
Yeah.
But if you get there, right, your relationship goes back up, you've got, it's at a healthy place.
Or even if one person can't verbalize it and the other person just understanding that there's something there can just sort of try to work through it on their own as well. Like, okay, well, I think I've been doing this, but maybe I haven't. And then just, breaking it down and getting back to some basics.
Yeah.
So not letting your other person feel for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't, I mean, you gotta be willing to play your part in fixing the relationship, and sometimes, and I think, again, like I would say as the man, if you are the leader of your family, right? Like I don't want this to come out that I'm saying the wife has no responsibility. That's not true. The wife has responsibility to her role in the marriage. But if the man is the leader and you see things going off the rails, like, we've talked about this before, but like I have zero issue coming to you and saying, hey, this is a problem in our marriage right now. It's a problem for me. And as a protection mechanism for our marriage, I need you to do X, Y, Z, right? Or I need this out of you.
Right.
Right. And I don't have a problem with you also saying to me, hey, I also like this, I'm going through this difficult period because I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling, whatever the thing is in on your side or whatever the thing is on this side, just have the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And don't get hurt about it. I'm going
to get hurt about it, but I'm going to try to work through it.
That's easier for me to say as a man. I'm obviously far less emotional about it.
Yeah.
And we've talked before. I mean, sometimes we've had these conversations and you cry, whatever. But you get over it and you're.
But sometimes I have the reaction before I have the rational mind to process it.
Yeah. And if you're at that point to where you've got to have a hard conversation to kind of reel back in the relationship to where it needs to be, that's going to be an emotionally taxing conversation, right? Because you've gotten to a place where things aren't really healthy.
Yeah.
So go have the damn hard conversation. Cry the tears.
Yeah.
Do the whatever, get things back on track.
Yeah. And I mean, your partner's, you're not a mind reader. So unless I let you know what I'm feeling and what I need, you might not know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I don't know. We went off on a little like tangent over there, but I think it's all kind of related.
Yeah, because I think a good relationship needs good sex.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think like any men out there listening to this just clapped, right? Because I mean, that is like way up there on a man's list.
Yeah.
So, but men, like, don't be afraid to take control of that situation and let your wife know, right? Like,
I mean, we've had brutal conversations about things that are and are not exciting during sex and stuff like that. Like just breaking it all down. Like if you can't talk about it, like how can you have sex if you can't talk about having sex, right?
Yeah.
Like,
or how can you have really good, intimate, deep sex that's the most fulfilling?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, have the hard conversation, right? Whatever it is. And I don't think there should be any topic really that's off the table. If it's a problem. I mean, don't go to your spouse because you're mad at them and you're just nitpicking them, right? And there's not something that's really a problem and you're trying to start a fight, because I do think those things happen too. Yeah. But if you genuinely care about your relationship and there's a genuine issue that is jeopardizing your relationship, go have the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to know how to make it, I don't know. I mean, we've been together 30 plus years, right? Yeah. I'm just telling you this out of our experience. I don't see any reason why we're not going to continue to make it 40, 50, whatever we end up living to be. But, I can tell you up to this point in our relationship, like, this is how it works.
Yeah. Right? And most of the time that somebody comes to me and their relationship is not all that they would like it to be, they're not having the hard conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, and people, they don't want to, like, I don't want to hurt my spouse's feelings.
Yeah.
Or I don't like the conflict. Well, I would say if you don't like the conflict, like, that's submissive behavior in a man.
Yeah.
right? Like men, you're going to have conflict.
Ooh, with me especially.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of women,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
like, so just get over that. Like you're
Yeah.
going to have conflict, right? Like that's part of your job is.
Well, a hard conversation is
Yeah, but
conflicting opinions a lot of times.
Yeah. And don't shy away from it, right?
Yeah.
So like, because you are going to, it is going to come around whether you want it to or not.
Right.
Right. If you don't fix it and
It's
you're
just
like,
gonna
I
get
don't
worse.
want to have the hard conversation with my
Yeah.
wife. And now, a year later you're having some affair
Yeah.
or something. Well, guess what? That conversation is going to come one
Yeah.
way or the other. Right.
Well, and you can't.
And now you just complicated the hell out of it.
Yeah. You can't avoid it. So letting something fester for months or years doesn't make the conversation easier. It makes it harder because you now are way more resentful than you were in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you've been living in unhappiness or dissatisfaction for so much longer.
And the longer you let it fester, the harder it is to dig out of that hole.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably the more work you've got to do and the more, so jump on those things early.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do. I mean, we talked about it. I don't make any apologies for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I care about my marriage. I'm protective of my marriage.
Yeah.
So
if you're not making your needs known, your spouse can't meet your needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else to say about that? I mean, I feel like we kind of.
No, my cheeks have survived. We can be done now.
Your cheeks made it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up. I don't know if we'll ramble again before the 29th, but we got a space we're going to be involved in, and I think kind of excited about. I think it's going to be some good conversation, and looking forward to it.
7 days.
So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll ramble before then. We'll see. 7 days is kind of a long time. Might get back in here.
We'll probably ramble before that. We're home for a while, so
yeah.
We'll probably ramble before that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
but yeah.
I guess let's wrap this thing up and go have sex or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm down.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm down. Are you down?
I mean, always.
Just kidding. I'm circling back to the beginning.
We're getting your cheeks. I'm trying to get your cheeks again.
Yeah. No, they're there.
Yeah. Okay.
I got them.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.